Hey everyone, welcome to the Sisters in Christ podcast. I'm your host, Amy, and I'm so excited that you're listening today. If you are new, welcome. And if you're a good old friend, welcome back. I'm so excited because this episode is part of my summer series from June 4th until the last week of August, where I'm having a different friend on each week who are going to share their story with you. I hope that their story encourages you to know that you are not alone in your walk of faith, that we all have struggles, but we also all have one God who is with us and comforts us, and that no one can comfort us as much as God does. So in each episode, they will share some highlights and some lowlights of their life and of their year, but how God has been there through it all. Thank you so much for listening, and let's see who our guest is this week. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sisters in Christ podcast. I'm so excited to reintroduce you to one of my friends and someone who has been on the podcast a few times, and I'm so happy that she's back. This is my friend Kennedy.
Hey guys! Thanks Amy so much for having me back. I'm really grateful for every opportunity you give me, and I'm glad I didn't flunk it the last time, so I'm actually able to come back.
No, I think that I really, appreciate hearing what God is speaking through you. And it's cool that we've also known each other for a long time and through different seasons of life. And it's awesome to hear, maybe even in things that we don't necessarily say one-on-one, but when we're recording and it kind of comes up in a topic, just really being able to see firsthand the way that God has been working in each other's lives, and then also being able to share it with other people. I think that that's amazing as well, because who knows, other people could resonate with that. So yeah, I'm glad that you came on. So first up, I think the question that I've been asking everyone is to share a little bit about their testimony and how you came to know God, but then also what being a Christian means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of crazy that I've known you for so long. I've ever shared my testimony with you in a formal sense. And
Yeah.
I'll summarize it as much as I can. But I was born and raised in a Christian family, great Christian parents, and I'm so grateful for them. And being raised in the church, I always kind of believed in God. Like, if you any age in my life, is God real? I would have said yes at any age in my life. And if you asked me if I loved God, I also would have said yes. And I loved being in Sunday school, getting all the questions right. Like, I was just that kind of kid that just tried to answer all the questions right. And, I always liked just knowing lots about God. I started reading my Bible at age 8, by myself. I would just sit and read my Bible, which is a lot younger than kids. And that was the I gave my life to Christ, or said the salvation prayer when I was 8, which is again pretty young. Just because I had been raised with this knowledge of God all my life, it just seemed like kind of the next step in my journey was, oh, you just say this prayer and you do that. Same with baptism. I got baptized when I was 12, which is a pretty normal, but also a young age to get baptized at. But I remember that all throughout my childhood, I had a lot of knowledge about God, but in my mind, God was so big and so great and so amazing that there was no way he could possibly fit inside this earth. And so in my mind, God was up in heaven and he was something up there, and I was down here on earth. And I loved learning about God, but I just kind of felt like a disconnect from him. And I didn't really think possibly knew who I was or actually cared about who I was. Although I knew in my head that oh, God cared about me, I didn't really actually believe that in my heart, that God personally cared about me. And so really my testimony is just a series of events over the course of my entire life up until now, of God just showing me that he is a personal God and that he's not just up there. Yes, he is up there and he is great and he is so huge, but he also cares about the little things and the personal things, and he loves all the little things I love, and he cares about all the little things that would seem too small for a God that big to care about, yet he cares about them. So I could just go through story after story in my life of times that I've seen God heal someone, or times that I've felt God speak to me in a moment where I really needed God to speak to me, or times that I felt comfort in a time that I really needed comfort. Because definitely my life has not been like super smooth sailing. I can't say that I've had trials as great as some other people that I know. Like I have not had the easiest life. I've also not had the hardest life. I've had like you know, a life full of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all of that, it's been God showing me his love for me, his how personal he is with me, and
Mhm.
that brought me closer and closer to him through every season of my life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I feel like for me, it was a little bit opposite.
Oh
Like
yeah?
I saw God as a personal God, but I didn't really always realize like how big and like amazing he is, you know? And of course I noticed and I knew how he moved in my life and everything, but I would say this year, actually this summer, I was taking an astronomy course and just learning about space and everything and how just big it is and amazing it is. I think really kind of put into perspective how big God is, that it's like he made all of that with like words, you know? And so it just became so real to me, like how I guess powerful he is. Um, and just like really also made me appreciate how personal he is and the fact that like I'm looking at these pictures of Mercury and like learning all these facts about it, or actually more so Jupiter of how big it is, learning all these facts. And I'm like, this is such a beautiful planet. It has so many intricate things. The fact that it's like in this exact position it is makes it so that Earth is fine, that it's able to orbit without like bumping into anything, and just everything is so precise. And it's like, for me, that's like, whoa, that's so amazing. But it's like, how much more is it amazing that he's a personal God to me, that he loves me, and that he also made me and made everyone in the exact specific way that he wanted us to be. And so I think I've always known that, but I think this course really helped me to appreciate it more.
So cool. Recently I learned that, Albert Einstein, he
Yeah.
like gravity, and he determined that if gravity was like 0.01% stronger or 0.01% weaker, then everything in the universe would be off balance and it would just all crash into each other, and like we would not have the earth as it is today. And it's just crazy to think about, like God made sure that every little precise measurement was exactly on point to create like the universe.
Yeah. And you cannot tell me it was like an explosion. You cannot like
This was not two rocks crashing together.
like what, how could two rocks make humans so intricate, make Earth so intricate, make outer space? Like it just does not make sense to me.
I am personally insulted if you think that I came from a monkey.
I don't look anything like a monkey. Thank you. Also, my thought is not to get too deep down into this hole, but if we came from monkeys, why why do we still have monkeys? And also, why have they not started turning into like why don't we see a half human, half monkey in the world? That's my question. But anyway, that's way off topic. All right. So, yeah, I really appreciated hearing that testimony. I feel like I've had a few people on in this series, and it's like I'm really good friends with them, but I've never actually heard their testimony before. And I think it's really nice for listeners to hear it, but it's also really cool for me to be able to hear it firsthand. So what is something that happened to you this year that was a highlight of your year, or like a mountaintop moment, but then you were also really able to see God in that moment?
For sure. So this year I did a gap year program with my church. And as part of the program, there was multiple like missions trips included, which I had done mission trips before with my family when I was younger. But in those missions trips, I was just kind of watching while my parents did the work. Like, I went to Honduras and I went to Ecuador, and in those trips, I was just kind of playing with the community kids while my parents did all the hard work. And so it didn't impact me in the same way back then as it did this year. This year I went to Brazil, and we spent some time there just helping the communities, ministering to them. I got to preach there like 3 times, which was my first time ever preaching, which was like crazy, having my first experience preaching, being with a translator, like to English. But honestly, I loved it because I got to think in between every line. So I would say something, and as they're translating, I got to like plan ahead for exactly what I was going to say. So anyway, great experience preaching, great time there. We had really good food. We played lots of games with the people there. We made some really good friendships. We saw some really cool things. It was hot. It was very, very hot, but it was beautiful there, and we had a great time. But the main thing that really, really impacted me about Brazil was the people and the way that they were. And sorry, that was not very that was not very specific. But these people in Brazil, every single person there, Christian or not Christian, had a joy unlike any other joy I'd ever seen. Like, even
Mhm.
the happiest person that I can think of in Canada didn't have a joy even close to what everybody had in Brazil. Like, it's just crazy. And like the amount of welcome, like they had this welcoming spirit about them that you would come and they just wanted everything they had. They just wanted to do anything they possibly could to make you feel welcome. And so I would give someone a compliment, like, "Hey, I really like your shirt." And they'd say, "Oh, you want it?" Like, they'd start, like, taking off their shirt, like, to give it to me because, like, that was just kind of love that they had for me.
Mhm.
They would have done that for anyone there. That was just, like, kind of the way that they were. But what really inspired me about it was, and this is something that I'm sure every listener has heard before, that, like, you can have joy regardless of your circumstances, that the external things happening to you shouldn't determine the joy that you have within, that like internal God-given sense of calmness and peace and happiness and that sense of like it's going to be okay. um,
Yeah.
and I think we've all heard that before, but it's one thing to know that and it's another thing to see that lived out practically by people who have far less than what we have here.
Yeah.
And so it kind of broke my heart for Canada because here we are, we have far more than anybody in that region I was in Brazil. We have far more than they have. Yet we fail to experience the joy that God has for us because
Mhm.
I think it's because of our complacency, because of our pride, because our comfortability within Christianity, and because I think we fail to receive what God has given us. So just being there, one story that I'll tell. This kind of will show a little bit about the way the people were in Brazil. So I showed up, and it was like the second day that I was there, and we were meeting all the youth and young adults at the church. And they have like small groups based on their ages. And so at the time I was there, I was 18. I'm 19 now, but I was 18 at the time. And so the small group, ages 16 to 18, girls, they were told that there's going to be an 18-year-old girl coming on the should like hang out with her. And the 16 to 18-year-old girls were like, okay, great. What they decided to do, they decided to prepare a whole picnic of their homemade food just for me. And
Oh,
so I got there and I was just kind of like meeting people, whatever. And this whole group of like 12 girls comes up to me and they're like, "Hey, are you the 18-year-old girl?" And they're speaking like through a translate. And I was like, "That's me. Like, I'm the 18-year-old girl." Um, and so they're like, "We made you a picnic." And I kind of thought, like, oh, maybe for each other and like I was being invited to join them. Keep in mind, I had just had a full meal. Like we had just had like a whole like feast. But I go over to the picnic and they've laid out like a blanket and every one of these girls aged 16 to 18 had made like their family's best recipe, like a dish. Like I'm not talking they brought like chips and salsa. Like no, they prepared they baked or like they made like a dish for me to have. And some of them made like, one girl made a cake and they were making like different types of like cheese breads and like casseroles, and they all made something. And they just gave me a plate and they gave me like a cup of like their special juice there, and they just sat around and watched me eat. Like, I was like, guys, like, have some, like, enjoy. They're like, no, 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 we made this for you. Like, we want you to enjoy. And they just all sat there intently as I was eating. It was awkward things, but like, it just showed like the amount of love that these guys had for me, just because I was an 18-year-old girl. They didn't know a thing about me. They didn't even know who I was, but like, they just knew that I was coming and that I love the Lord. And they were like, how can we bless this girl? And they decided that the best way to do that was to make me a picnic, even though I was full. I didn't tell them that. I ate all the, and it was like the most profound show of love that I had ever experienced from strangers in my entire life. And it made me think, like, I have the resources to do so much beyond that, and yet I don't. And what would Jesus do, right? Like, you think of that Mary in the Bible who poured the expensive, like, she broke the expensive jar of perfume on the feet of Jesus. And that was what it felt like was being done to me. And it just made me, it gave me some perspective to think about, how am I loving the people around me? How am I in my life? What do I have to give that I'm not giving, you know? And it honestly changed the way that I see other people. And it will always, like, I'm forever changed. My mindset, just by knowing those people, has really changed my life.
Yeah. Wow, that's so encouraging to see that even though they have way less than we do, that there's just a joy about them. I feel like for me, my dream has always been to do missions. I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. I wanted to do like a missions gap year program. That didn't work out. So my dream after school was to go move to Kenya for like a few years and do missions there as a teacher. And everyone's like, oh, like you're going to be so broke. You're not going to make any money and all those kinds of things. I'm like, but I'll be happy. Like, do you not see how happy they are there? And they have nothing compared to what we have. And it's like, I want to be able to teach some of these kids that maybe not have that don't have access to school, and be able to educate these young men and women, you know, and also just hopefully be able to remove everything that I have here that maybe distracts me from my relationship with God, and just be able to have my eyes so focused on God that I am able to experience that joy. Not saying that I can't also have that here. It's something that I have really been focusing on by removing different things from my life that like social media and everything that has been distracting me. But yeah, I think that it's really eye-opening to see the joy that they have other places. My uncle went to Belize on a missions trip maybe like 10 years ago. And when he came back, he was like so impacted by the joy there and everything. He comes back, he goes to Costco. This mom has a cart full of like food, and her kid's crying because he didn't get like an ice cream cone. And my uncle said he just started weeping because he's like, how are we at this place where we're crying over not getting an ice cream cone when we're so blessed to be able to have a cart full of food? And so it's really cool that you got to experience that firsthand, and it's definitely life changing. And yeah.
That's cool about your uncle. And I do hope that you get to go to Kenya one day. I
Yeah.
have before, but I've never been to Africa. So I would love to go to Africa as well.
Yeah. So what is something that happened this year that was harder or challenging, but you're still able to see that even in the midst of the challenge and the struggle or the trial, God was still there and comforting you?
Mm-hmm. So a little over a year ago, we found out that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was a shock to me because my mom is a very healthy person. She's always eaten as long as I've known her. Well, as long as I've been alive, I mean. And I just kind of like, I heard of cancer happening to other people, but I never thought that would be something that would affect my immediate family. And here we were with a diagnosis that it was hard to believe.
Mhm.
And so she started getting treatment for that in the States. And it was a of first just accepting that it was actually true. Like, it just took me a while to actually let it sink in. And I'm sure that's something that you've experienced as well, Amy, because I know you've also experienced like cancer. And it's a really weird thing at first. It's you don't believe it, you don't know what
Mhm.
you don't know, like, it's hard not to let your mind jump to the worst, and so you're just trying to think of the best, but then it's like, are you being realistic, and do you not have faith in God because you're doubting? And it was a whole like battle the first little while. So my mom in Florida, and the treatment was successful for like the tumor that she had in her breast, and so that was amazing. We praised God for that. Yet she had a hip injury at the same time, and it wasn't really healing. She was like limping a lot. She had to go for another test, and it came back that before breast cancer had been eliminated, it had spread to her left hip,
Oh.
and her hip injury wasn't healing. So although cancer was gone, she was now dealing with breast cancer in her hip. And so we found that out about November of this past year. And her hip was just getting worse and worse and declining quite rapidly. She was doing treatment in Toronto for that, but it wasn't really improving. And she went from using a cane to using two canes, crutches, to then using a walker. And then, like, there were days that she couldn't do any stairs. And so, like, my dad or my brother would have to carry her up the stairs to go to bed because, like, her hip was that immobile. And seeing my mom like that was it didn't feel real. Like, my mom is an active person. She has she used to play squash. That was how she originally injured it, was by playing squash. And she would play hockey, and she was always like a runner. So my mom was like a very active fit, and it got to the point that she was taking like less than 100 steps a day because every step caused her hip pain. So in the midst of all of that, those were some rough seasons. Yet I can honestly say that when my mom was at the worst and when I needed the most comfort, those were moments that God was the closest, that He spoke clearly. There were times that my family fasted and we would do fasts together, and I had never done that extended period of time fasting. And in periods of fasting, God felt realer than He'd ever felt to me in my entire life, and God spoke to me in greater measure than He'd ever spoken to me before. And I was receiving like dreams and visions for my mom, which was really cool experience. So it was bittersweet because it was very hard that having God so close is one of the best things ever. And so it was just both amazing and horrible emotions all at once. Um, and in the midst of that, I'm doing Bible school and more about God. So yeah, um, it was definitely a crazy time in my life, and that was about December. Was about the worst time for her. Right when we just kind of found out what it actually was, it like really got worse. And then in January, my family we were going on a vacation to Mexico, and we'd had this trip booked like all year long. And so we had like 1 month until this trip that we had planned, and it really seemed like my mom wasn't doing well, and we were like, is she gonna be able to make it through the flight and all like the walking in the airport, and like, is it even worth going? So we were kind of thinking about maybe canceling our trip to Mexico. But right around that time was when my mom just made like a crazy turnaround for absolutely no reason. Like, nothing really changed. Yet within the period of like 2 weeks, my mom went from being at her absolute worst to being able to walk out any canes. Like, it just happened so fast. Yet the scan showed still the same amount of like cancer there, but like it was just God. That's the only way to describe it. And so we went and we were in Mexico, and she was walking around. We went on zip lines together. We went on like ATV rides, all in like Mexico, and it was a great trip. Like you didn't even know anything was wrong over the course of that trip. So that was really cool. And in February, we went on another trip. We went out skiing. She didn't go skiing, but she like came on the trip with us. Stayed in the like chalet. So it was like God just like provided enough health for those specific trips. And then when they were over, it climbed again. And so then she was back to Walker in like March. And so from March until about May, it was kind of a bit of a plateau. So she started, she switched treatment and she started doing radiation. And when she did radiation, it was like a week after that we started seeing more improvements until where she's at right now. She's been able to go for boat rides this summer, which has been great. But anyway, this isn't all about what my mom is and isn't able to do, but this is just to give you guys a picture of like what the severity was of what my family's kind of been going through. And in the midst of that and seeing my mom like that, God's faithfulness is something that you can really hold on to. And that's something that you can only gain trust with someone when it's a situation that you are directly in. And I would have said before that I trusted God, but now I trust God so much more because there's so much more on the line. And like I don't know the outcome of this, but I know that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And so that's been a verse I've definitely been like relying on. And my mom, in the midst of everything she's been going through, is the most emotionally like joyful, stable person. It has not affected her in the least. And if you asked her at any point throughout this entire journey, like how she was feeling, she would tell you that she knows that God's gonna heal her. That's what she tells us. It's like, I know that God's gonna heal me. So that's been really cool.
Yeah. It's such a miracle that, and it also shows God's love and care for us, that He always provides us with what we need in the moment. And you saying how like for the trip she was able to go and really enjoy the trip. It's amazing, and it's a blessing that she was able to do that, despite what was going on. And the instant, or like the short period of time that it was, that's actually so cool to hear. I actually didn't know that all this was happening. Yeah, I'm so sorry about all of that, but I'm also so happy to see, not happy that happening, happy to see how your family has really been able to rely on God through that, because it's usually you learn to really trust God, or you start to like pull away from God, and I'm glad that you've really drawn close to God in this time.
For sure. Yeah. And don't feel bad about not knowing, because for a while we weren't telling anybody. And it slowly got out. So some people know, some people don't. It's not a secret anymore. But yeah, we've definitely pressed into God. My whole family has. Like, we do communion together as a family sometimes, and like we plead the blood of Jesus over the life of like my mom, that's one of my favorite things that we do together.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's so beautiful. So, what is something that you would say has been a theme over the past year, whether it's a word or whether it's a reoccurring lesson, but something that you've really seen God teaching you?
Yeah. I kind of touched on it before, but the fact that God is a personal God, it comes up in my life again and again. And like the way that God cared enough about our little trip to Mexico to temporarily give my mom some relief from the pain that she was experiencing, that was a thing that was very personal. Like, you have to care about someone in a personal way in order for that to happen. And the times that I've seen or that I felt God speak to me, those are things that have been personal. But I think that one thing that God has been teaching me through how personal he is my word for the year is the word abandon, and living with abandon. And it's not in the sense of like abandoned building, but like the word abandon means to leave something behind, like completely leave it behind. And I think it's teaching me how to leave behind the things that don't matter so that he can take care of the things that do. And it takes making room for God to, like, if you can't God can't, if you don't to move, like, you need to make room in your heart and in your life in order for him to kind of take over and do what he does best. And year of me pushing things aside to say, okay, God, where are you in the middle of this? Where are you in the middle of my mom, like, experiencing cancer? Where are you in the middle of this nation of Brazil that doesn't have very much? Where are you, God? And it's been in the middle of me abandoning the other and making room for God that I've seen him really move, not just in the big things, but in the little things. It's when you abandon things, God really starts to move in the little areas of your life. And as he does that, I realize the insignificance of the things that I think are significant in the sense of worldly things. Like, the things that the world would value are really insignificant. The things that are of heaven are so much more significant than we've ever been able to see with our human reasoning and our human eyes. And like, God's giving me that perspective process of abandoning the things that don't matter. It's like, whoa, why did I care about that? It's been really cool.
Wow. Yeah, abandoned. I think that's something that we all could use in our life, because I think that the world has so many distractions and so many things that just consume you. It's all consuming. And I mean, Satan loves to use that and distract you, or you're not able, you take up parts of your heart that should be towards God. And yeah, I think that it's something that I've also really been, I never necessarily had that word from God, but something that, like, throughout my year I've really been learning. It's like, okay, what God is of you, and how can I really focus on you, and what isn't of you? Because for me, I was like, okay, God, teach me to be more like you. Like, help me to grow my faith, help us to have a better relationship. Like, I don't want to be distracted by the world anymore. And then it was kind of like, okay, so what actions are you taking that show that you want that? Because I mean, God can do anything and everything, and I believe that 100%. But I think that he wants to see action, even though he could completely transform our lives without us doing anything. I think that it is really important for us to be like, hey, this is something that I really want, and now I'm taking the steps to really pursue that, because we as humans, we really need to pursue God, and that's what God calls of us. And so it's taking a look at your life and being like, okay, what are things that are distracting me? If I truly want to have a deeper relationship with God, and I truly want to see growth in my relationship with God, how are my actions speaking louder than my words?
Yeah, so good. Recently, I felt that God was telling me to, like, abandon Instagram. And this has been a battle for me because I don't have a healthy relationship with Instagram. I got it really late in life. I was like 16 when my mom told me I could actually download Instagram. And when I first got it, I was like, whoa, app is amazing. And some people are addicted to TikTok. I've never had TikTok. I'm addicted to Instagram Reels. And they would just, like, take up hours of my day, like, just scrolling, to the point that I wasn't even conscious of the fact that I was doing it until there would be some sort of wake up call, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, 4 hours just went. What have I been doing? Or I would just, like, decide to go on Instagram for a little bit at nighttime when I'm about to go to bed, and I'd be about to go to bed at like 10:30, and then I'd look at the clock and it's like 3:30 in the morning, and it's like, what am I doing with my life, you know? And this has been a constant thing. And so for the past like year or so, I've like gone back and forth between like deleting Instagram, downloading it, and then deleting it, and then re-downloading it. And there'd be times that I'd have it deleted for like a couple months, but then at one point I would like go back to it on Safari. I would access my account on the internet, and then I would start scrolling on the internet, and then I'd be like, let me just get the app again, you know, and I'd be back at it. I think I went like 6 months this year without anything, and I was so proud. But then I like relapsed again. And I relapsed. It's not like, you know, but to me it was an addiction that was not healthy, and I knew it was wrong. And this past like 2 weeks ago, and I'm saying this on here so that you can keep me accountable, because I cannot have Instagram. It's not good for me. Like, at least for like I need to be done with it. And so a couple weeks ago, I decided to change my password so I can no longer access my account. And so I went into my account and I changed my password to like the most like random combination of like characters, and then I just like copied and pasted it into the confirm password spot, and then I deleted it. I blocked it, or like I logged out of my account on Safari and on Google, and I did it on my iPad and on my laptop. And so like I have no access to my account anymore, and I'm just like praying that like God will give me the strength to be able to like stick to that, because that's been like a distraction that I just had to obey. And I'm not saying this like, oh, look at me, I was able to push aside this thing. Like, no, I'm saying this as in like I do not have the strength, but like when I'm weak, then he is strong, right? So I'm learning to rely on his strength with something that's been a major struggle in my life.
Yeah, no, back in February, I had been really kind of convicted that I needed to take a break from social media because I was really struggling with my self-worth and body image, and I was in the middle of a relapse. And I'm like, God, I just can't keep going on like this. I can't keep living like this. Like, I need your help to just really trust that you made me for a reason. You love me, and I want to hear more about what you have to say about me than what the world has to say about the ideal body, or like how you should look, and like just saying things like about me, not that they are actually are, but that I'm internalizing and idolizing and literally like damaging the body that God gave me so that I can achieve this worldly obsession that I have. And someone said that they got this app where it like limits their screen time, and in order to bypass it, they have to write this like Bible verse, and it was something about like not having idols in your life. And so if they're like, oh, okay, 10 more minutes, then they would have to like write this Bible verse, and by the time they get through it, they're like, actually, I probably shouldn't hit the 10 more minute button. And I'm like, okay, well, I have a screen limit timer on my iPhone, but it doesn't have a password. So the amount of times I press ignore for the day is not good. So in March, I decided that I wouldn't have social media, and I deleted it for a month, and I really missed it. It was very, very hard. And I ended up getting it back in April. Like, okay, I've had my month off. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to use it responsibly, and it's not going to be an idol in my life. And I was very wrong and it didn't work out that way. And so then a couple weeks ago, as I was praying and everything, and taking the action, I was like, hey, God, like, I'm back at that place again where I'm scrolling endlessly, where I'm believing all these lies that the enemy is able to whisper to me, because I'm I'm taking all this in from scrolling, you know, and even just like my initial thoughts, right? Like on TikTok, on Instagram, you don't like you can make your algorithm what you want it to be, but you don't necessarily get to decide what words are being used in the reel that you're watching. And so it's like, even though I never cuss out loud, like they would just fill my head, and it's like garbage in, garbage out, you know. And it's like, hey, why I need to like realign my thoughts with God. And so, yeah, I decided that I needed to take a break from that. And honestly, this time I didn't really miss it that much. It feels natural. And so I still do have, I deleted it all from my iPhone. I still have, again, not to be like, woe is me, but as like a suggestion, not that if you have Instagram or TikTok, you're a horrible person, but as a suggestion to also consider maybe doing this. But I deleted them from my phone, and I deleted all streaming platforms from my phone and my iPad as well, being like the only shows I want to watch is with my family or on the TV, so that I'm also held accountable. That if I don't want to watch this on the TV when anyone could come down at any moment, then like, should I be watching this show at all, you know? And I still have it on my like Instagram on my iPad for um the podcast, but I am like absolutely no scrolling at any time on Instagram Reels or on TikTok. Like I can kind of look at like the feed, but like no more than like 5 minutes at a time. And I'm really grateful that God has been able to give me the strength to be able to do that. And like the way that my mind has just been so much more focused on God, and also I have so much more joy because I'm not bogged down by all the things that were coming at me. Like it's not an escape for me anymore. My escape is to go to God.
Yeah, so good. So relatable, everything that you just said. I'm like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. But like, it's just crazy how much social media has become a trap for our generation. And
Yeah.
we don't talk about it as being altogether sinful, because it's not. Like, I agree with you that like if you have TikTok, Instagram, and you use it, like that doesn't automatically make it a sin. But like the
Mhm.
Holy Spirit impresses it on our hearts when it becomes sinful, when you make it an idol of God, when you are treating it as something that is just putting garbage into your mind again and again and again. Like the Holy Spirit makes that so clear. And it's hard. It's it's a dopamine addiction. That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
like getting fast dopamine to your brain every time that you scroll. And it's that like feeling that our generation becomes so to. It makes us dumb. It makes us lazy. It makes us like unable to enjoy the little things in life. And it does the opposite when you get off. You become smarter. You become more hardworking. You're able to appreciate the little things in life so much more. Like you're able to just sit and watch the sunset doing absolutely nothing. You don't need music. You can just like take it in, and that is healthy. That is like what God intended us to have. And when you're able to enjoy the things that God intended us to enjoy, there's greater fulfillment in the long run.
Yeah. Another thing is, I go to bed so much earlier. And so then I'm able to wake up earlier and have a longer God time. Because before I'm like, oh, like I'm only going to give myself like I'm gonna give myself a half an hour of God time. But then it like, oh, I press the snooze button, blah blah blah, and then it gets so short to like maybe 10 minutes top. And so I'm reading my Bible, but then I don't have that prayer time, you know. And so now that I'm not scrolling all hours of the night, I go to bed earlier so I can wake up earlier and spend my morning in prayer journaling, and in the Word. And yeah, I've just found that so refreshing. Another thing that I have done to help with this is that I charge my phone outside of my room, like on the counter downstairs, which is something I always had to do as a child. But now I've done it by choice because I want my first thing in the morning to be in the Word, praying to God, not like checking to see who texted me, you know? And so, not that everyone has to do that, but that's something else that has really been um, big in my relationship with God, because he's first in my day, and it's like I don't want to let other things come before him.
Mm-hmm. So good. I did the same thing. Mine is just in the hall of my room, so you've got a one up on me. Kitchen downstairs.
That's so cool that like we've kind of been convicted of
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, honestly, it's all consuming when you let it consume you because of the dopamine. And it's hard at first because you're like, oh, okay, like I have 2 minutes until I have to do something what do I do? Oh, I'll scroll for 2 minutes, But I actually, in this time, I've started taking up piano again. Like, I always play piano because I love it, but just like chords and everything. Because I took piano lessons for 9 years. I cannot read a single note on sheet music.
So, who taught you?
Because I would always play by ear. I'd be like to my piano teacher, oh, like, I've never heard this song before. Can you play it for me? And she'd play it, and then I'd be able to play it. And I mean, that's a great gift from God. I'm like, I really wish I knew how to read sheet music. And so that's something that I've been trying to teach myself again, and learning more classical music than the worship music where I do chords, because I love that. And music is something that I really feel close to God in, and it's something that I believe is a spiritual gift from God for me. And I'm like that I'm having this time to kind of relearn music and piano, and it's just another way that I'm prioritizing God in a way, because it is a spiritual gift that I didn't have time to do when I was always scrolling. But maybe I should have had you as my piano teacher.
What's that?
Maybe I should have had you as my piano teacher.
For those of you that don't know, I do teach piano, and I do teach my students how to read the sheet music, and they can do it without me playing it for them. So that's pretty cool. It's so funny because, like, I'm the opposite in the sense that I grew up playing classical and reading sheet music, and these past couple of years I've been learning how to do chording for worship. So it's like you and I.
Yeah. I don't know how I got away with it for so long, but
That's
whatever.
insane. That's so funny.
Shout out Mrs. Tentori. I love you as a piano teacher and as a singing teacher, and you put up with a lot having me as your student. So good on you.
Mrs. Tentori, it sounds like it was not your fault. It sounds like this is on me.
It was on me. But I liked getting out of class, that's for sure. Because she would come around the school, and so I'd be able to miss some of my class to be able to play piano. That motivated me to keep doing lessons.
That is so funny.
No. Yeah. Was there anything else that you kind of had pressing on your heart that you were wanting to share?
You know, I kind of feel like we covered the bases today. But thank you so much for having me on your podcast once again. It's fun just talking with you, and I'm honored that you choose me to be able to share some of what God's been speaking to me with other people. It just feels like such a privilege, and I'm very grateful for it.
Honestly, it's a great excuse also to catch up. I feel like also catch up like outside of the podcast, but it is a good excuse to be able to see what's going on in each other's life, because yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's really been cool to hear what God has been teaching you this year, how God has really been there for you this year, and also to be able to hear your testimony and how you came to know Christ, and how it was really made real for you. And it's also really cool to hear kind of how our convictions have been pretty similar. I think that was really cool to hear, because you're saying all these things and I'm like, yep, okay. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope that you have an amazing rest of your summer.
Thank you.
And have an amazing week at camp. I'm so happy that you get to go, even if it's just a week and you're wishing it was longer. I really hope that you enjoy it and that God really uses you in that week. Anyway, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast episode. I really hope the Holy Spirit taught you something and that you were left encouraged and uplifted and that you have an amazing rest of your week. I'll see you back next Wednesday, but in the meantime, feel free to follow us on Instagram. It's called Sisters in Christ. There you can see who the new guest is ahead of time and see what my favorite part of the episode was. So I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Have an amazing week.